Hey folks, Roland Martin here and welcome to my YouTube channel, and today I'm going to talk about the 3 best ways to catch a big bass here in the state of Florida. Well, you notice I'm holding this thermometer because just the other day I did a whole big YouTube about temperature, about how important it is to hit the right warm temperatures and not have a cold front to deal with. So again, I want to preface this whole little video about the fact that to catch a big fish in Florida, you need the right weather conditions. So the right weather conditions are avoid the big cold fronts, have a nice thermometer, look for that nice warm water. And for example, the floor here is 77 degrees. That's a good temperature for, say, bass in the water. But if it's 67 degrees, it's not. So think about water temperature. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, the second big consideration in catching a great big bass in Florida is the spawn. Bass are different in Florida than any other state. The bass actually start spawning a little teeny bit in December. Here in Lake Okeechobee, South Florida, the Stick Marsh and those places, even December starts a few spawn. January is a good spawn. However, in January, like I told you before in the other video, sometimes you have a cold front that'll come in and interrupt everything, and it'll knock the water temperatures down to the low 60s or 50s and mess everything up. So you want to avoid that. Look at your iPhone. I said look at your iPhone, try to find the favorable weather conditions, particularly warming water. Okay, so now we're into January. February is a great month for spawning. March is great. April's good. May is good. So, I mean, we have a long spawning season, and that's what you want to key on. The full moon periods and the new moon periods. Okay, so let's talk about the spawn. If I had one way of catching a big bass on the spawn when I'm throwing in the little hydrilla pockets over in headwater, I'd probably start off with this devil's horse. I've caught a number of bass in the 10-pound, 9-pound, and 8-pound class in the spawning season. And you merely throw it in there on a 20-pound test line. I don't have one rigged up right now, but a 20-pound test, a regular rod, just like this one here. This is actually the favorite reel, the Solace series 8-to-1 ratio reel. I'd run 20-pound test line. This is a 7-foot, 1-inch medium heavy action. It's a perfect rod for this devil's horse, and I'd run a 20-pound monofilament. I like a monofilament on a topwater plug. Okay, that's the first choice. Throwing it in those little pockets of hydrilla, working it slow and easy. Great big deal for 8, 9, even 10-pound bass. Okay, that's one choice. Now there's a lot of heavy cover in the headwaters, for example. A lot of places that you can't throw, say, a devil's horse or a topwater in general. And so my other choice for catching really big fish, I'm talking about 10, 11-pound bass. I've caught a number of 10 and 11-pound bass on this black frog. This is a Spro 60 popping frog, and I've gone one step farther. I've put the little bit bigger hooks. I've put the 4-aught hook in here instead of the 3-aught hook, but you get the 3-aught's all right if you bend them out. So you notice I've bent that out just a little teeny bit, and it's not quite as weedless, but it catches more fish. Okay, now with this is the right complement for throwing in hydrilla pockets as well, but it's more hydrilla. You're throwing it in the edge of the grass, edge of the lily pads, into the edge of the hyacinths. You're throwing it up on the cover. And one thing I like to do with the frog in the spawning season that's really so cool, they'll be back in these places, and if you throw the plug right on top of them, that's not a good deal. You don't want to throw the plug right on top of them. What you want to do, if they're in a little hole in the grass, which you don't know if they're in there or not, throw past the hole with the frog into the hydrilla, into the hyacinths, into the lily pads, and then let it sit there, and then kind of walk it out slowly. And when you get into the hole above where you think the fish might be spawning, stop it. Just work it real slow. Now this kind of walks the dog a little bit and pops it, but mainly you can stop it and fish it slow and easy. Now to do that, frogs sink. So you have to always watch the front end right here and make sure that there's no cracks and crevices. And sometimes they get cracked, and then sometimes the pike, if there's any pike around, if you're up north, they will cut this frog to the point where it sinks. You don't want a sinking frog. You want a frog that floats. And so sometimes you have to put a brand new frog on that floats. But anyway, I've got an oversized hook, I got a frog that floats, and I got 65-pound braid. And I'm throwing it again into heavier cover. Now again, a topwater bite, there's something about a topwater bite, there's clear water in Florida. Some of the very biggest fish ever. Now on Lake Okeechobee, there's a guy by the name of Gary Milicevic, and I fish with him a lot. He takes this exact frog. This is the Spro Popper 60, and he just absolutely decimates them. And he wins almost every tournament that there is. And back a couple of years ago when there was a lot of 30 and 40 pound stringers, he had them. This is the kind of stringers he had. This year the stringers aren't quite as big because of the weeds. The weeds are kind of deficient this year, and the bass are kind of on the brink of, I don't know. I'm fishing headwaters, but the headwaters has the same kind of deal. It has heavy cover, plenty of grass, plenty of pockets, plenty of hydrilla, and needle grass, and all kind of different kinds of grass that you can throw that frog. It's a great, great, great way of catching a monster bass. Okay, that's a good way. Spawning season, monster bass. But you know, they're not always spawning. They're not always spawning. I'm a power fisherman. I mean, there's nothing better than give me a big flipping stick. Give me 65-pound braid and give me this rod right here. Big old giant 7.5 foot flipping stick. This is that Pro Series. I've stiffened it up. I made a longer handle out of it. 65-pound braid. What do we have here? A nice 1/2 ounce jig. A nice 1/2 ounce metlock jig with a nice little kind of a beaver looking thing on the back. I use a lot of Yamamoto creature baits on the back. I use any kind of thing, and this happens to be a blue and black, but it just happens to be my favorite color. 1/2 ounce is a great, great choice. I'm throwing it in little pockets. What I'm doing with the jig is I'm not fishing it in the heaviest cover. I'm not punching with the jig, but rather I'm going along, and I'm just going to take you out outside here for just a second. I'm going to just show you what I'm doing. I can pitch back in the little shady places back in there. I mean, I'm back underneath the bushes. I'm back underneath I'm in the lily pads. I'm in the heavy, heavy cover. And I'm taking this jig and I'm throwing it in, okay? I jig it up and down. Sometimes I'll let it sit there for just a second. I'll just kind of let it sit slow and easy. Sit there slow and easy. And I'll reel it out. I'm just kind of in the spot. I'm just throwing it into the heavy cover again. Let it sink down. Watch the line. I'm a line watcher. I'm a line watcher. And I'm in the heavy cover. Nothing. And I don't retrieve it in. I just throw it in all sorts of places. I let it sit there. It sinks down. It sinks down. It sinks down. It sinks down. It sinks on the bottom. Sometimes I'll just let it sit there for 5 or 6 seconds, twitch it just a little teeny bit, 3 or 4 inches. Nothing. I'll go to another spot. You're covering a lot of water. You're covering a lot of water. All these little places, these little pockets. I like the points better than the pockets. I like the isolated cover better than the big, wide open expanses of grass. I like an edge better than I do a solid bunch of grass. So edges, points, isolated cover are all things that I'm kind of keying in for a jig like this. This is a 1/2 ounce metlock jig, which is my favorite, and it has in this case a Yamamoto creature bait on the back. 65-pound braid, 10-pound bass, 9-pound bass, 8-pound bass. You're talking about monster bass hitting this big flipping stick. Now let me show you another thing. You heard about the punching? Let me show you what a punching is. Okay, now here's a little bit of a different deal. It's again 65-pound braid. What do we have here? This is actually 1.5 ounces punching weight. Now how it's set up, it's really kind of cool. This is such a cool deal. I just got to take this off for a second. I'm just going to show you what happens. This is such a big deal. Okay, folks, here's the key to this punching weight. You notice the weight? Look at that hook. I want to show you something. Every time I pull up on it, every time I pull up on this thing, it comes up 100% of the time. And the reason is there's a concave bottom to that weight. And this the way that thing's snelled and put on there, it comes up and hits that snell set up. It comes up point first 100% of the time you pull it. 100% of the time. So that means that when you actually get the bite, even if the fish had the weight and you set the hook, it's going to come up like that, and then it's going to slip and get them every time. So now that I have the snell knot that's got the upward point that's up all the time, I'll put my bait on. It could be a big crawl worm. It could be a It could be a big otter looking thing. It could be a creature bait by Yamamoto. It could be one of these types of lures like that. And again, it's all set up. Now, I have a bobber stop on here as well. And the bobber stop does two things. If I didn't have the bobber stop on there, let me show you what happened. Say I'm in the heavy cover and brush and I'm pulling over this log, and all of a sudden I didn't have the bobber stop on. Watch the weight. The weight goes down, and the weight and the lure is still up on the top of the deal, and you think you're on the top, but instead all you're doing is letting the weight drop down the line. With the bobber stop on there, watch what happens. Put the bobber stop on. I come over the log. It comes over, it falls down. See, so it goes over the cover. It comes down. It's not, weight's not sliding up and down independently. Now, here's the key for punching. The key to punch is you look for the heaviest cover you can find. You look for vertical matted up stuff. You can look for horizontal matted up stuff. I mean, it's like piles of trashy leaves. It could be sticks. It could be hyacinth mats. It could be all these kind of stuff, and you're pitching right in there. And as it goes down, here's the key to almost all these lures. When you first throw it in there, almost all the big fish hit quickly. Hardly ever do I catch a big 8 or 9 or 10 pound bass after jigging it a bunch. About 99% of the time. The second it goes in the water, and the second it goes in the water, it starts to sink, bang, a strike. That quick. So you have to be ready. You have to be ready. So you can't be lollygagging around. You can't be going like this, and you go like this, and you say, oh, there's a strike, and then, oh, I better set the hook. Too late. He spit it out. You don't catch fish like that. When you're punching, the second that weight goes through the cover, you got to be in a strike position. It's going down. I'm in a strike position. I got it in my stomach. I got the rod ready. I got my hand on the reel. I'm ready to set the hook if he hits it on the way down, and that's what the big fish do. They hit it almost 99% of the time. That first time it sinks down. So you throw it into something, get ready right away. I mean, you're ready. The second he hits it, you got to hit him within like 2 seconds, or he's going to spit it out. You don't say, oh, there's one now. Yeah. No. The second you feel them, the second you see the line jump, the second you hit them right now. But you have to have your rod low. You have to have it anchored in a good strike position. You have to have your drag set. You have to have your reel and gear. All these things have to happen in those first 2 seconds. Okay. Big 7 and 8 inch golden shiners on a float. Now I got a lot to say about this, and there's a lot of tricks to it. And there's a lot of, it's just not going down to the store and buying a couple dozen shiners and going out and catching a big bass. Way more complicated than that. First of all, you need to have the right tackle. And the right tackle, in my case, is again either a flipping stick or a heavy-duty casting rod. I like 65-pound braid. Okay. The other thing I like at a big shiner hook is I use a Kale shiner hook. That's a Gamakatsu shiner hook. Happens to be a 6/0. I use 7/0. I even sometimes use 8/0. I usually use a fairly solid float, about 3 or 4 foot up the line. Again, it's anchored pretty well, and that's one outfit. That's a pretty good setup. Okay. The second outfit is a big spinning rod. Look at this. I got this on a big favorite spinning rod, and I have it on. It's actually a Bass Pro Shop reel. But look at this. I want to just show you something. Look at this. This is kind of cool. This has a bait runner feature. Now, what a bait runner feature is that spinner rod. This is 65-pound braid again. Look at this. It's got a big tight drag. Okay, but when I want to lay it down on the bottom of the boat, he'll jerk it right out of the boat. But look at this. With the bait runner, I put that back, and now it's free spool. It's in free spool. The second I turn the handle, it's engaged. It's back in the lock position again. Just come over here to the boat for a second. I want to show you what to do with lively shiners. Okay. Most people have a regular bass boat like I have, and they have live wells, and that's fine. But what they don't have, they probably don't have an oxygen tank. Now I fish shiners a lot, so I have these oxygen stones right here. Okay, and I put this in the bottom of the live well. And I know there's aeration in the live well, and I turn my oxygen tank on, and now I have livelier shiners than ever. Can put twice as many shiners in the live well because of this oxygen. It really, really peps them up. Now watch this. So we're going out like this, load it up. That's a good net. Look at that thing. I've covered the whole 20-foot net. Now, here's the deal. I've now caught 10, 15, 20 dozen shiners. I don't know how many shiners. I come back, put them in the boat. I got plenty of bait. I got up to 20 dozen a day. I don't charge for them. I mean, this is free. I do this every day. I do not charge a penny for my shiners. But the thing is, I have lively bait, I have more bait, I have fresher bait, and I have a lot of bait. I have the right tackle, the right equipment. If you want to catch a lot of monster bass, you'll pick up the art of shiner fishing and really get into it like I have. You'll catch more big fish than you can ever imagine. The number one way of catching monster bass in the state of Florida, shiners. But I showed you the other ways as well. Hey, thanks for watching this YouTube. Hey, come on down, get the weather right, catch yourself a 10-pounder. We'll see you again soon.